Son of a bitch.
Russell?
Are you fucking kidding me?
Hello, I'm Jaecen. Sorry I was gone for a little bit, but it turned out there's a whole zombie apocalypse thing going on. It all started in the state of Minnesota because who the hell cares about Minnesota? Regardless, I was tasked with stopping this whole zombie apocalypse thing. Why me? Well, I just filled out a Google form and they said they'll take anyone who's played Resident Evil 4 and Lego Rock Band for the DS, and oh boy, aren't they lucky. Just between you and I though, I need a copy of Resident Evil 4 like, right now. Shit, fuck. Come on.
This is Pizza Hut. How may I help you?
One copy of Resident Evil 4, please.
What the fuck is wrong with you?
Resident Evil 4 is one of the greatest games of all time, and wait, have I heard that one before? It's no secret that this is one of the most celebrated games ever, igniting the spark that was the third-person shooter genre. Resident Evil 4 was not the first game to utilize its over-the-shoulder shoot bad guy gameplay, but it was the one that made the genre become what it was today. Often regarded as one of the most influential games ever made, it always comes as a shock when you realize that this game had such a rocky development. This game would have the most changes made to any Resident Evil game in the franchise, even more so than Resident Evil 2, and that game had development issues up the ass. To give the SparkNotes version of what happened, Shinji Mikami, the creator of the Resident Evil series, wanted to change up the formula since the old style of fixed camera angles and survival horror was getting boring for developers and gamers. Mikami said that the fourth installment was being made for the PlayStation 2, and the first prototype was directed by master Twitter blocker Hideki Kamiya, who also directed Resident Evil 2. It was a more in-your-face, action-oriented sequel to Resident Evil 3 Nemesis, a game that was already more action-packed than previous entries. The developers wanted to make you feel like a badass and tried to balance the coolness with the horror, but it deviated too far from what was already established with the Resident Evil formula, which is ironic because Resident Evil 4 would be the start of the action-based games in the series. However, that prototype wouldn't go to waste, as it was retooled into another game, the first Devil May Cry. So because of this, at the end of 2001, Resident Evil 4 would begin development again as a Nintendo GameCube exclusive, alongside 5 other games. We'll get into that a little later, but Nintendo and Capcom have had their pillow talks before, with them porting Resident Evil 2, 3, and Code Veronica X. Capcom also remade the first game, what fans call the Resident Evil Remake. RE Remake is often regarded as one of the top games in the franchise, being what the first game should have been if the developers weren't restricted by hardware. A prequel game named Resident Evil 0 was also made, not regarded as one of the top games in the franchise. To clarify, RE0 and RE Remake weren't part of this exclusive deal, but RE4 was. The 5 exclusive games were called the Capcom 5, with Resident Evil 4 front and center. However, one game was scrapped, one was released at the same time on the PlayStation 2, and 2 of them would later get ports to the PS2 as well, and that's where Resident Evil 4 fell under. Only one of them stayed on the GameCube, and fucking good, product number 3 should stay there. As I stated before, Resident Evil 4 went through several prototypes, most notable being the Hookman build. Taking a note from Silent Hill, the Hookman build had more of a paranormal vibe going on. And when I say it's more similar to Silent Hill, I only mean it when it comes to the paranormality of this version. It features the titular Hookman coming out of a painting, alongside other spooky activities like knights' armors moving on their own, which is an aspect that made it into the final game. This build of RE4 made me wish that this wasn't wasted or made into a spin-off or something. Another game made by Capcom was also made of Resident Evil 4 scrapped assets and even an early script, and that's Haunting Ground. Though that game is more similar to the Clock Tower series than Resident Evil. The hallucinations that Leon goes through in this build would have shaken up the series more than the base game already did. But alas, we got the more action-oriented game that we got, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. When this game came out back in 2005, it released to acclaim more critical than my health. Yeah, this game was popular, especially for a GameCube game, which was at 3rd place compared to the PlayStation 2 and Xbox. At the time, Resident Evil 4 sold over 300,000 copies in the first 20 days of its release, and that's in the US alone. Oh shit, when that PS2 port hit the scene, you bet your ass more people bought that version. 2.3 million copies on the PS2 alone. That is no small feat, especially considering the rocky development that this game went through and the exclusivity on a failing console. So remember how I said that this game was supposed to be a GameCube exclusive and Capcom said never mind? Well, they said never mind a little more times than a regular person should. See the show button on the Wikipedia page? Yeah, this game's not a GameCube exclusive. That purple triangle on the top left corner is nothing more than a fucking lie! GameCube, PS2, PC, the best one, Wii, the other best one, iOS, Zeebo, what the fuck is a Zeebo, PS3, Xbox 360, Android, PS4, Xbox One, Nintendo Switch, Xbox Series, PS5, my fucking wallpaper! They're not even out on the PS5 and the Xbox Series yet, but I know they're gonna be ported. A remake is said to be in development that would release in 2022 on those consoles, but we're talking the original here. There is no shortage of ways of playing this game, and good. Everyone should play this game with whatever they have, and the PC version isn't even all that hard to run either. So there's no excuse to not play this game. As for me, when the game came out back in 2005, I was only 3 years old, so I was just picking my nose and shitting on the floor. I didn't do the whole playing video games thing until I was about 5. But one of my earliest memories is one of the relatives playing the game on the PS2, and I remember crying to one of the El Gigantes. And I haven't touched the series until this year, maybe because I was scared. But I decided to not be a bitch and pop my RE cherry with Resident Evil 2 Remake. I can talk about how great that game is in the future, but the game I played right after was this game, Resident Evil 4, and I fell in love with its more linear and dare I say more fun gameplay. And ever since I played RE Remake, RE2 Remake, Resident Evil 3 Nemesis and its remake, RE4, RE6, which is not good by the way, and Resident Evil 7 Biohazard. So yeah, I love the series now, but I'm getting ahead of myself.
This game has set a precedent for not just survival horror games, but video games in general. It's easy to see the genes of this game passed down in modern day games like The Last of Us, The Evil Within, Uncharted, Vanquish, Mass Effect, and even Fortnite. Hell, the modern Resident Evil games used a camera system that appeared in 4 first. That's a testament to how great this game is. Capcom remade the games that inspired RE4 to make it in line with RE4. Now, with all that being said, does this game still hold up?
Let's start off with that plot. So, imagine the dumbest plot possible. Yeah, that's Resident Evil 4. First things first, you don't need to know any other games in the franchise at all, as RE4 has a pretty self-contained plot. I mean, if you played RE2 or its remake before this game, you'll see some returning characters and winks and nods to it, but otherwise, you don't need to play any other game in the series to enjoy this one. And here's another thing, this game is the least scary game in the series. In fact, I wouldn't even call it a horror game, it feels like a game that would be playing in the Spirit Halloween or something. So Leon S. Kennedy, one of the main protagonists from Resident Evil 2, went from a rookie cop to a government special agent handpicked by the president. And man, this guy went from a complete cornball to an absolute Chad. It's almost astounding to see the leap in character that Leon goes through. He can say some of the corniest things every once in a while, but to me they seem way cooler now, considering the shit that Leon does in the game. Like motherfucker backflips through lasers and says a line like this.
Where's everyone going? Bingo?
Leon is sent to Spain alongside one other police officer. Well, it's fine. Leon is a goddamn one-man army, knowing how to use every single weapon that he collects. You've been sent here to rescue the president's daughter, Ashley Graham. She's been given a mind-controlling parasite known as Las Plagas, and Ashley with the parasite can be given to the president for world domination. Who wants to control the world? Well, there's a cult named the Los Illuminados, and they've taken control over a village, a castle, and a military base. So as Leon, your job is to save the president's daughter, somehow let her go, and rescue her again multiple times until you finally get a goddamn grasp on her. Along the way, you meet dead, supposed to be dead, and my bae. This is the merchant. I love this man, and he needs to be given everything imaginable, and yes, that includes the world. He shows up out of nowhere, and he is one of the best characters in the game. He doesn't do anything plot related except act as a shop, but he is a goddamn king. I love him. I don't really care all that much about the other characters because, frankly, I think they're quite forgettable. Luis is cool and all, and he's one of your only allies in the journey, but I think he dies far too early in the game for him to really have an impact. He provides a little bit of lore in the documents that you collect throughout the game. Turns out that he was a scientist hired by Lord Sadler to restrain the Las Plagas parasite. Coming to terms and wanting nothing more to do with that, he makes his escape from the cult and he ends up meeting Leon until inevitably dying. Again, he's cool, but he dies far too early in the game for me to be really invested into him. He's a bro, but he's a temporary one. Ada Wong is a returning character from RE2, here to take the Las Plagas parasite for herself, similar to her role in that game where she tried to take the G-Virus. She helps Leon throughout the journey, giving him a fucking rocket launcher at the end, and setting up a jet ski for him and Ashley to escape with. Krauser... I didn't care about him. He's Leon's old partner, and he kinda just shows up out of nowhere. Turns out that he's the one that kidnapped Ashley and turned her over to the cult. I'm sure in a spin-off game there's lore provided for the guy, but really, do I care about him that much? I think he's just there. He doesn't add anything to the plot except a boss fight. Ramon Salazar is such a little shit, I love him. When he hacks into Leon's intercom 1/3 in, he becomes such a comically evil asshole, he's great. And the big bad of this game, Osmond Sadler, is nothing short of generic. He has a menacing presence, but he tells way too much information to Leon and Ashley. Like, you have to be getting yourself killed. It's the overconfidence syndrome that too many villains have. I don't really care for him the same way I care for someone like Wesker from RE1 or Birkin from RE2. Pretty one note, but that's what he needs to be for this plot. As for the person you're trying to rescue, Ashley, I don't hate her at all actually. She's a naive teenager and... wait. She's 20? I'd understand her behavior if she was like 14 or 15, but she's fucking 20! When she runs from Leon after he asks if she got infected and she falls right into a trap, that's how I know that this is the type of character we're dealing with. To be fair, this is a shitty situation to be in and I wouldn't act as calm and collected as Leon, and as I said, I don't hate her, but she can be pretty annoying sometimes. Also, she somehow knows how to use this piece of heavy machinery here, and it's never explained why exactly. Oh, is she a construction worker? You'd think the president's daughter would have a safer, more prestigious job, but you know, it's fucking Resident Evil, why should I care? So, yeah, if you think about it, this is just a Mario plot with extra steps. But you know what? The cliche pseudo-Hollywood plot and its quirky dialogue are what make it such a treat to play. Hell, even Sadler makes a quip about it.
The American prevailing is a cliche that only happens in your Hollywood movies.
The story is dumb, but it doesn't need to be any more than what it is. I like how simple and fun it is, and it doesn't fall into complicated plot traps that later games would. The game's voice acting is good, great even, and I'm not much of a stickler when it comes to that type of thing. Everyone delivers their corny ass lines pretty well, and yes, it's the lines that are bad, not the acting.
Okay, I have only one very important question. You got a smoke?
Got gum.
It doesn't take itself seriously as a game like RE2 Remake or any other RE in general. I think this game's focus on fun is the reason why this plot is so campy, stupid. But honestly, the plot to me didn't really matter. It's the gameplay that got me hooked. This game is one of the most enjoyable games I've ever played, and its gameplay complements the plot perfectly. I'm going to be looking at the PC version, as it's easier to record and the game cleans up really well. You know what, in general, RE4 is one of the best looking games in that generation. This is one of the later games in the GameCube, PS2, Xbox, Dreamcast era, and you can tell they've really mastered the hardware after developing several games for it. I think it's on par with early Xbox 360 and PS3, it's that good. As stated before, Resident Evil 4 is a third-person shooter, meaning you aim and shoot at things with the camera behind the player's shoulder. You aim with the WASD keys, aim and shoot with the mouse, and interact with the E, X, and C keys. Hey, dumbass doing the voiceover, you said aim with the WASD keys. Does it look like you can aim with this? You move with these keys. You move with these keys. You move. You can also do a quick turnaround with the Q key. When you hit an enemy enough times, they get winded and you get the prompt to do a melee attack. This could range from a decapitation kick to a suplex powerful enough to explode a head. You even have the means to defend yourself if you're out of ammo, and that's what the knife is for. Hold down space and use the mouse to slice and dice your way through shit. The knife is really broken in the Wii version, as you can just flail your arm around and go apeshit with the knife. When you play the game at first, you notice something right away. You can't strafe in this game. You also can't move while you shoot, so you're stuck with its tank controls much like the first 3 games, and honestly, it's not that much of a hurdle to get through. I mean, yeah, it's a little dated and unwieldy sometimes, but the game was built around a control scheme and it never really gets jank at all. Combat is so fluid despite its somewhat clunky controls. Leon has an arsenal of weapons courtesy of the merchant, and these weapons are fucking awesome. The Striker is my personal favorite weapon here, a shotgun with the power to blast 10 people in one fell swoop. When you fully upgrade it, you can buy an upgrade that allows you to make it have 100 rounds, and it's a fucking monster. Fun fact, this gun has a really easy to do glitch that makes your movement speed increase by 1.5 times, but that's a trade secret that no one should know, so I'll shut the fuck up already. I'm also a fan of the TMP, a submachine gun with insane firepower. It has plenty of ammo capacity, and it comes in real handy when you're out of shotgun ammo. And finally, the Broken Butterfly is my favorite magnum here. You find it in the castle area after rescuing Ashley, and this thing does as much damage as a sniper rifle. However, it's at the cost of your reload speed, as it's really slow to reload. It's such a useful gun when you start to see magnum ammo drop, and you get it for free. When you kill enemies, they drop loot. This could either be money, ammunition, herbs for healing, or other items like grenades and, I don't know, eggs. Collecting loot in this game is the best feeling ever. After killing a huge horde of enemies, you see that loot drop, and man, that noise when you collect things is so nostalgic to me, even though I only played the game this year. It's such a satisfying feeling when the game rewards you for killing all those enemies, and it's an even better feeling when you collect those rewards. I love this. That loot goes into your inventory, and this is one of the best aspects of the game. It's so weird that something so mundane as organizing your inventory can be so fun. Every item that isn't a key item goes here, so your weapons, ammo, and your healing items. Each of them take up a set amount of tiles in your inventory, and with the right organization skills, you can fit just about anything in this attached case. Your guns will take up a lot of space here, so organize accordingly. In a way, this can be a game in itself because it plays pretty similar to a puzzle game. Fitting all of your stuff when you want to get that one piece of loot can feel like a dauntless task, but when you have just the right amount of space, it feels so fucking euphoric. You use money to buy from our king here, the merchant. He offers weapons and healing items, and man, it feels so relieving yet terrifying when you see this guy. On one hand, when you see him, he can be near a typewriter where you can save your game. It feels like a cooldown, and there's no enemies nearby, so you can take the time to look at his dreamy ass eyes. But sometimes, he appears right before a boss, and you know that feeling of existential dread? Yeah, that's what happens when the merchant appears before a boss, and you know he's right before something's about to happen, signified by ammo and health items. But that's the fun of this game, knowing that you're prepared or unprepared enough to take on something huge. When there's a ton of enemies on the screen and all you need is one shotgun blast to take them down, I love that shit so much. Or when you take a flash grenade and you toss them at the birds to get the loot. Or you shoot Krauser enough times to shank him with a knife. In general, this game knows how to hit my video game G-spots. Even when the game turns into an escort mission with Ashley, it's still pretty fun. Granted, she can be a bit of a nonce and get in the way of a blast or explosion, but she's usually smart enough to get behind you. Mechanics like these are well thought out and they never make the player feel like they're not in control. You know what? I think that's the best way to describe Resident Evil 4 as a game. You're always in control. Enemies in this game range from your standard Ganados to these slightly stronger guys in cloaks to terrifying motherfuckers like this guy, the Regenerator. When the game introduces him, you don't have the thermal scope, so you don't know where to shoot this guy, and whatever you do, he just gets back up as if nothing happened. So when you miraculously kill the guy, it feels as impactful as killing a boss. But he shows up again, but you don't know what to do. However, you find a thermal scope, you equip it, and then you can see its weak points. You shoot them and he explodes in the same way as he did the first time. Speaking of, boss fights aren't all that much different from your traditional enemy encounter. Just learn the pattern and shoot its weak points. If you want to make the El Gigante boss fight a whole lot easier, just save this dog here and... Oh wait, it's Huey from Haunting Ground. This dog doesn't actually do all that much, but help him out anyway, you fucking monster. The Delago boss fight is the highlight of the game, and it can be pretty challenging when the game's slow aiming. However, I point those two out in particular because I think they're some of the better bosses. Boss fights in general are some of the weakest parts of the game in my opinion. The Verdugo is probably the worst offender here, as I feel like it goes on a little too long. I feel like I could have killed this boss fight in 5 separate occasions, but the motherfucker just kept on living. So I said fuck it and blew him up with a rocket launcher. Fun fact, the first time I fought Krauser, I didn't know the knife did 10 times more damage on this fight only, so it took me a lot of attempts to kill him with just guns. I watched a playthrough of this fight and I wanted to fucking slap myself after they hinted in the cutscene that you should use knives. Hell, even normal encounters suck sometimes. This part of the castle was a part I thought lasted way too long. It's mostly a waiting game in a small blue room here, and for a game that's all about getting things done in the fastest way possible, this part felt so fucking long and tedious. It's literally a room designed to drain all your resources. And the cabin part with Luis is such a pain in the ass too. Again, it's another room to sap you of your ammo, so just shoot their legs and give them all a kick and a slice. There are some puzzles here, and they aren't too long or tedious. I always remember the puzzle at the church. It's 333-4443 by the way. And they aren't the most brain-taxing thing out there. In fact, when I do a puzzle for too long, I feel like a dumbass for searching up the solution. I'm always like, shit, it's that easy? In fact, one of the solutions to a puzzle is 1, 2, 3, 4. Are you trying to lose on purpose, Sadler? There's a whole variety of gameplay elements in play, and all of them feel so fun. But even when you're not playing the game, you have to play the game. In between some cutscenes are some QuickTime events, and they require you to mash those X and C keys or your mouse buttons. I'm sure these were revolutionary additions to the game at the time. Like, I can't even take a break even if I'm watching the cutscene. But nowadays, they're alright. They're not that intrusive, but I feel like they're tacked on. If you fail the QTE, the cutscene just resets, so there's really no stakes at raise here. I feel like this started a trend of games overutilizing QTEs to substitute gameplay, but that's a discussion for another time. What I love about RE4's gameplay is that there's no one set way to play through it. You can collect as little loot as possible and still have a great time, or you can collect every little thing you see and feel like a goddamn boss when you mow through the Ganados. You can choose the riot gun over the striker in one playthrough, or choose the red 9 over the Punisher. This game rewards you no matter what, and it rewards you more when you go out of your way to explore. I love that. No matter how you play, you're gonna have a damn great time, and it's really accommodating for all types of players. Presentation-wise, this game is damn near perfect. I said the graphics are fantastic for the time, and the music feels so atmospheric. There aren't many notable tracks, but when the enemies show up on screen and that theme plays, it adds so much adrenaline to your body. The angry Spanish of the Ganados, even if they're repeated lines, adds so much to the world and they make me want to blast their heads off. The rev of a chainsaw fucking terrifies me every time, knowing that Dr. Salvador or his cohorts, the Bella sisters, are nearby. And man, the Novistadors are some of the nastiest insects I've ever seen in a game. I hate insects, so seeing a giant fucking mosquito fly around me sent me shivers, but nothing a shotgun could fix, right? After fighting your way through all these enemies, there's only one person left for you to fight, Osmond Sadler himself. Being the leader of the Los Illuminados, there's only one way to finish him off, and that's with a rocket launcher, courtesy of our totally not girlfriend, Ada Wong. Anyway, blast our rocket and escape the island via jet ski. And with that, with Ashley riding that jet ski with you off into the sunrise, that concludes Resident Evil 4. Wait, I'm not done. There are different game modes and content that was introduced in the PlayStation 2 version. Ada has some chapters here, Separate Ways and Assignment Ada. In Separate Ways, you play as her to give Leon a little assistance as he's going through the main game himself. And in Assignment Ada, she has to give 5 Plaga samples to give to Wesker. By the way, in Separate Ways, the cutscenes look like fucking garbage. It's because the PS2 used a different rendering software compared to the GameCube version, but by god, it looks so gross and muddy. I'm not gonna go too in-depth in all these side modes, because honestly, I feel like I don't need to. They're there if you can't get enough of RE4's gameplay, and playing as Ada Wong is always a treat. Another mode, Mercenaries mode, is a pretty fun romp and a half. It's an arcadey type of game that I absolutely suck balls at. Essentially, you're timed to do a task in the best way possible. So for example, kill as many enemies as you can with Leon to get a high score before the timer runs out. I didn't spend too much time for this for the review, but just know that this option can be a good time killer when you're bored. The main game was plenty enough for me, and that should say a lot. Resident Evil 4 is one of my favorite games of all time, and I only played it this year. Simply put, it's great. With a plot that feels like a cheesy 80s movie, voice acting that complements that, and gameplay that knows how to produce dopamine, Resident Evil 4 is a masterclass in fun. A game doesn't need to be thought-provoking or super complex for me to love it, and some of my favorite games are that. But Resident Evil 4 knows how to have fun, and that's what I love about it. Play this game, it's the best game in the entire series. It's not scary, you don't need to play any other games in the franchise to know this one, and this game aged like fine wine despite almost being 3 generations ago. You can't go wrong with buying this game. Resident Evil 4 is a 9 out of 10 for me, it's almost perfect.
And that's how you do government training, ladies and gentlemen. I'm about to go on my mission right now and they faked all my hours on the log. You'd think they would have a system that discourages me from doing so, but they don't care about me. I'm yellow!
Social commissary.
Oh, it's time to go. Well, I'll see you guys when we get there.